Welcome to a new YouTube video of our channel, Hoffnungsträger. Today we're talking in English because we have a very interesting guest, Benard from Uganda. He's a scientist and he's doing a lot of different scientific research. So could you please at first introduce yourself? Who are you? What are you doing for your lifetime?
Thank you very much, James. It's an opportunity and honor to speak with you this evening. My name is Cankara Benard. I am Executive Director of Efficacy Methodology, which is an independent public policy think tank working here in Uganda, Kampala. Our focus basically abroad we cover the whole of the continent and a number of issues, but at the moment our focus is within the East African region, and that is covering about 7 countries, including Uganda, Rwanda, Kenya, Tanzania, Burundi, and South Sudan, and our latest country joining in, that is Democratic Republic of Congo. Yes, I am also, I hold a master's degree in public policy from Uganda Christian University, and I am also a PhD candidate of public policy and governance at Chambu University. I am a research fellow of public policy again at the University of Ghana in Accra. So as I speak with you now, I am actually speaking from Accra, Ghana. I'm not in Kampala. Yes. So that is basically about me. I am a young public policy scholar. I grew up in a small village in Uganda, in the northern, up north of town. So it's an honor to speak with you. And thanks for the invitation.
Honor to speak with you. So we just have to look that we talk a bit loud, that it's good to hear on YouTube. So it's a very interesting introduction. You are in 7 different, or you're researching on 7 different countries, like for example Burundi, which I know is a country which needs a lot of development. And then now you have done several policy papers, for example, about governance, but also about development, sustainability, and also about the climate change.
Exactly.
Let's start with the climate change. It's a topic that also in German media is a big topic at the moment. And I think all the world is issuing a serious problem when it concerns to climate change. What is your research to that topic?
Yeah, thank you very much. Climate change, no doubt, it's a serious concern that globally the world has been paying attention to, and true to it, it is important and extremely important that we pay attention to climate change. And it surprises me that some countries are still going back and forth, and they don't have a clear policy direction on mitigating and fighting climate change. So definitely in East Africa, we have been concerned. We do a lot of research to improve resilience, government compliance, and build capacity, and also understand the climate mitigation dynamics within the local communities. And so, yes, we do a lot of research. We've written papers. We have advocated, we've done policy advocacy with Parliament of Uganda on a number of occasions to ensure that the right climate change mitigations are adopted. And of course, again, internationally, we've been throwing lights on a number of issues, especially on climate financing. You realize that the continent of Africa is being almost at the center or the frontier of climate change. A number of other development countries have already made tremendous impact or negative impact on the continent, given the high level of industrializations, including Germany, by the way. And so, yes, as Africa, we are trying to adopt a sustainable industrial approach, and a number of countries are trying to adopt a sustainable industrial approach, and that is why, as a think tank, we tend to advise government on a number of issues. We've written policy briefs. The recent paper that we've written we actually noted that it is impractical. It's impractical that government of Uganda can actually attain sustainable development or sustainable industrializations without clear and concrete funding basis for climate change mitigation. So yes, that is our focus, and we've done that we continue to do that substantially. In a couple of days from now, we will be in Nairobi. Again, the Climate Change Summit, if you've understood, the Africa Climate Change Summit is happening in Nairobi just a couple of days between 3rd and 6th of September. Again, we are trying to come together. You know, previously, when you look at the COP26, COP27, Africa has always been on the table negotiation, but no concrete funding or climate financing has come from developed countries. In other words, the developed countries are not actually committed. They're not demonstrating high level commitment to fund climate change mitigations and efforts in Africa. And yet, Africans have not, they are not the major cause of the current climate crisis that we're facing. And so, yes, we will be meeting in Nairobi to have this important conversation, more especially how Africans can come together and have a unified opinion, voice, and a position that when we meet again for COP28, there is a clear understanding of where the continent, what the continent needs to achieve.
That's very interesting. So we hope that the African Union will find the good solutions. I know it from the European Union, there is always big fights when it comes to, because all the countries have their own things and their own interests, and it's not so easy. But I guess it's very important that all the world is coming together here for this issue all together. I mean, especially for your continent, it is the Western world, let's say Europe and North America, who is the most responsible for the climate change historically when you watch the emissions. But it's the whole world who will be in a bad way treated by the climate change. But I guess maybe you can see it as chunks for Africa, that you do not do the same faults like Europe has done it with fossil energies, but you can go directly to solar industry, to, I don't know, windcraft maybe. How is this? For example, your country, Uganda, or other countries from the 7 that we have named, are they doing things like solar industry, their plans, stuff like this?
Yeah. Yes. There are a number of efforts that are being done to move away from fossil fuel production and then drive to a little bit of more clean energy, as just come to be much appreciated globally. Now, one of the challenges that most Africans find themselves in this space is that we are in the space of achieving economic development and economic growth. At the same time, you must strike a balance between economic growth and development and climate change mitigation. Now, when you find yourself in that space, it becomes extremely important that it must be navigated in the right manner, because the truth is, Africa, while there is significant progress across the continent, there is some element of reversal of development. I mean, there's some element of development across the continent. We are still struggling here. And so government are trying, as much as we want to achieve climate change targets that is stipulated, for example, in the Paris Agreement, there are still gaps, and Africa in the space of achieving development at the same time. And for example, when you look at Uganda is at an advanced stage of producing the first oil, and it is important. We actually need to produce that oil to be able to leverage on our financial capability. Otherwise, we actually becoming a highly indebted country And when you look across the continent, there is a high level of debt that is growing up. And so to avoid that, it is important that such resources are exploited and is put to effective use. But how do we then achieve that production, but at the same time doing mitigating on climate change and reducing carbon emission reductions? And so when you look at Africa, the ministry, government, and the Ministry of Environment and Water, they have adopted a number of efforts. For example, afforestation that is being done massively within the country and across the continent. Currently, if you are aware, the belt that is being, the tree planting that is all going across the continent, it is significant. But exploitation of resources that can leverage African potential, it's important that those resources, if can be exploited and put to effective use, it can be achievable. And unfortunately, sometimes striking those balance becomes very complex. But there are deliberate efforts and policy measures that have been put in place to see that to some level there is sustainable level of development.
Yeah, it's always good to see efforts. I'm sure you know the Fridays for Futures movement. It's a global movement. Are you in contact with these activists? I know that in Mauritius there is a Friday for Future movement also. I don't know if it's in Uganda existing. And would it be interesting for you to connect with activists from, for example, my country, Germany, to find ways to work together with this?
Yeah, I would love to. We would love to engage and interact the more, because the conversation on climate change is not just limited to Ugandans and Africans. Yeah, we need to speak to other continents so that we can develop a common understanding on how we can approach. Because at the end of it all, climate change is here to destroy us. So it's us or the climate change. So it is important that we mitigate. And to do that sustainable, we need every voice. We need to come together, even in our disagreements or in our diverse views or opinion. The common understanding is that climate change is here, and we must be able to cooperate, and so that we can come up with clear and concrete approaches that we can do. So yes, I and the team in Uganda and across the continent, I am sure we would be very willing and positive to collaborate and see that we can achieve as much as we can achieve.
So, if anyone of our watchers of the video is going to connect with climate activism in Uganda and other African countries, we will post your LinkedIn profile so people can connect with you. And let's see if we find a way to work together more closely. It would be quite nice. You're also researching in other topics. First of all, it would be even interesting, what was the name of the study that you have done as student? And second, you can just choose about which other topics you would like to talk also. One about the things you have done research and written papers.
Yes, I have written a number of papers crossing from climate change to governance, but I think I can pick one. The most recent paper that I wrote on governance is I raised a concern on debt across the continent, because that is a development area, and we raised concerns on the debt level that is increasing across the continent, particularly in Uganda. We're becoming a highly indebted country. And so, yes, that is the most recent. And then again, on governance, we also wrote a paper on the ideology within the nexus of ideology within the East African community. We tend to.
What have you found out, for example, in these papers?
Yeah, for example, the East African community has been attempting to.
Sorry, you must
unite us.
A little bit louder, so that you're good to hear.
Okay, all right. Maybe I think my mic. So you see, the East African community, since independence, we have been making attempts to unite as one single country. Efforts have been made. over the years that the East African community can achieve political federation, and that has not been achieved. And when we wrote a paper, we actually realized that there is a complete mismatch in the ideological orientations within the different countries. When you look at Tanzania, for example, they are more socialist, yeah. And so when you trace the historical background of Tanzania, or Tanganyika for that matter, you then appreciate that it was actually a socialist, and that was incumbent on the ideology that was of Ubuntu that was introduced by Julius Kambarage Nyerere since independence. So, and then when you come down to Kenya, and you realize that majority of the Kenyans are capitalistic by nature. And so these conflicting ideologies. And then again, in Uganda, there is a mixture between capitalism and socialism. And this mixture of ideology has made it very difficult for Africans to come to the same, for East African community to come to the same agreement of achieving political federation. And that is why, in many cases, when you see good negotiations and efforts are being made, but eventually it becomes extremely difficult because of those divergent views. The other aspect which also came out very clearly is that as much as there has been good progress at that level of achieving a political federation, like, or economic integration, for example, the local people have not been able to appreciate it substantially. So the local people find it difficult to still move within the East African community. It's different from Europe, for example. Yeah, that you find that a German would easily move between Germany and other European countries. Yeah, of course, of late you can remove United Kingdom, but at least there is some element of ease of movement among the citizens of Europe across the European countries, and that has not been highly integrated within our local practices. So it is more still remain at the paper level than a practice. But I believe with concrete efforts and progress, that the political leadership, and of course as the policy actors, we will be able to achieve that. We will be able to achieve that. It might not be very so soon, but we will. There are strong commitments that are coming through.
Okay, yes, that's very interesting. Yeah, I have maybe one last question, I guess we will achieve. When it comes to the challenges of governance in East African countries, what are maybe some of the most pressing governance challenges that African countries face today, in your opinion? And how do, let's say, for example, the more socialist government in Tanzania and the more capitalist government in Kenya, how do they specifically face the climate challenge?
So now, Uganda, just like most of the African countries, face a leadership crisis. This dates back to as far as early post-independence. Africa will struggle to get concrete leaders that are pro-people, that are able to reduce their appetite for public funds, for example. So there has been general leadership crisis across the continent. But that is not to say that we have not had strong leaders. We've really had very good, strong leaders since time immemorial. I can mention Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Kwame Nkrumah is a renowned Pan-Africanist who really stood up strongly for the continent and demanded and tried to rally most of the Africans to achieve one united Africa continent. So yes, we've had strong leaders over the years. We've had Nyerere himself. We had Thomas Sankara, who was unfortunately assassinated. We've had credible leaders. The current breed of leaders that we have on the continent, you can mention His Excellency William Ruto. You can mention Yoweri Museveni of Uganda, despite certain weaknesses that he holds to himself. And of course, when you look across Ramaphosa from South Africa, you then understand that Africa are building a certain block of leaders. So you can see that there is element of suppression of the current leadership gaps that we've been having. And I believe that the future of Africa is definitely bright when you see the leaders standing up and speaking truth in the reality of the challenges that we face as Uganda, but also as a continent. So as much as leadership is a challenge, we are optimistic with the current breed of leaders that are coming up. And we think that the continent is on the right direction. And once you're on the right direction, certainly the issues that we face, corruption, and all these other nexus of problems that we face will eventually be diminished. The other major challenge that the continent faces is the global influence. That cannot go without being mentioned. Africa, since time immemorial, we have suffered in the hands of neo-colonialism efforts and imperialism. And this is still deliberate. The wounds have never healed. If you look at the current coup that is happening in West Africa here, in Niger, Burkina Faso, those are all trails of political influence. Either if it is not France, then the Russians. If it is not the Russians, then the United States are here. If the United States are not here, then the Germans are here. And so, yes, it creates, and now you can imagine that level of political influence coupled with weaknesses in leadership. You certainly expect a very negative result. And so, yes, we cannot fail to mention that political influence at the global level still remains our biggest challenge.
Yes, I guess also very new topic is the putsch in Niger, which there are some hints that Russia has to do with it, and in this country. And yeah, I think it's a good point that maybe African governance should be more independent. But I can only just be happy about the hope look in the future.
It is extremely important that Africans can achieve utmost independence, that we can control our own future. And Africa, over time, we have become of age that we can actually control our destiny. And it is important that, it is not that Africa wants to isolate itself. No, we know it's a global village. Africa cannot achieve much without talking to the good friends outside, without talking to Germany, without talking to even France or even China or Russia. It is not possible that we can grow or achieve our growth without talking to people. Africa needs friends. And since time immemorial, Africa has been very welcoming continent, and we continue to do that. But what we are saying is that, can we be allowed to make certain decisions that are pertinent to us? And then we stand by that. And then our friends would support us in such decisions that sometimes those decisions are very tough and some are very controversial depending on people's schools of thoughts and ideology. Sometimes such decisions can be can appear to be very controversial. But as long as it fits within the context of the African people, I think it is important that our friends should respect us at that level.
So this is a very good closing point and a very good hopeful look in the future of Uganda and the whole African continent, that things will become always better and better. It's very good to talk with a guy from a country that has a hopeful view in the future, as in our country many people have a look like, oh, things are going to be worse. And it's nice to see a people who is best increased or the belief in things becoming better.
Yeah.
So thank you a lot for giving us inspirations and a lot of new knowledge about political sciences, political issues in especially Uganda and whole Africa as general. And maybe as last question, because you have
Yes.
interesting ideas. What about you? Could you imagine to go into politics?
You know, politics is very different. You must, in political science or public policy, we are very cautious to understand the ground first. So I definitely a growing leader within the continent. I'm definitely a growing leader within the continent. I am learning as much as possible. My trip to Ghana has been very inspired by my political intentions and motivations. So I think at the right time, we will be able to have concrete answers to that. For now, I'm more interested in understanding the affairs of what is going on within the continent. I think in the near future, we will have to take good leadership positions within Uganda first, because that is my country. And there are definitely crises and issues that needs to be addressed within my country. And so I am optimistic that in future, I will have to take leadership responsibilities within Uganda, and subsequently see across the continent what is it that we can do within the continent together as a people of Africa, but not just as the people of Africa, as a people of the world. You got the continent and the friends of the continent. We continue to engage and see. So yes, I am optimistic that in the near future I'll have to take leadership position and make a contribution.
Cool. That sounds really good. So,
Yes.
if you don't have any issues to tell me, then I say thanks a lot for taking your time. And thanks to Christoph, a friend of me who has given the contact to you.
Yeah.
So that people all over the world will watch this YouTube video. We will do some promotion for it. And I'm lucky to have you as a guest. And we see you next time.
Thank you very much for having me, and thank you so much to the friends of Uganda. Thanks very much to the friends of Africa, including Germany and all the other friends around the world. Thank you very much. The continent is open to negotiate. The continent is open to negotiate and be friends with anyone that care to listen to what Africa has to say. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.